All right, just waiting to get the signal that we are actually live. It's Carrie here. Well, I have taken a request from one of the folks who has commented on some of my previous Full Tilt Fridays. And today's subject is going to be enduring the low points or getting past those parts that are tough, difficult in a race, in life, in relationships, in business, those types of things. So this comes from the Don username on YouTube. Hey, Carrie, I love your content and your drive. Really appreciate these Friday videos. Could you do a video on some of your toughest races or the times when you were drained mentally? In all your ultramarathon videos, you always seem to be at ease, pushing through very well, even deep in a race. I would love to know some of your mental tricks to get you through tough spots. I recently watched your Maldives marathon video and found great comfort in it because I think that was the first time I saw you struggling to get through a relatively short distance. For you, haha, being a Florida runner, I know that sweating experience well, and it's not fun for long runs. So personal experience of tough races and how to push through the bad physically and mentally. So thank you, Don, for that suggestion. It's a good one. I got running stories on. Hi, down there in Australia. I wish I could go there. Actually, the shirt I'm wearing is Australia. This is the Delirious West 200 miler, which I did a year and change ago and had a fantastic time visiting Australia a couple times. So today was also a bit of a momentous achievement that I am able to chalk off, and perhaps the longest, most sustained effort that I've done in any race ever, which is this great virtual race across Tennessee, which is this thing right here, the great virtual race across Tennessee, which started the beginning of May. Lazarus Lake, Gary Cantrell of the Barkley Marathons fame and Big's Backyard Ultra fame put it on. It's a 635-mile virtual race across Tennessee. So from one side to the other. And him knowing people who do ultras like to push things a little bit, knew that there's probably going to be people who are going to do the across the state and back. So when I started, that was kind of my goal. That worked out to, there's 123 days. If you run 10 miles a day for that entire time, then you can do a double crossing, which if you do the math is 1,270 miles. And I was well on my way to get that. Today, with 10 days left, so today would have been the 113th day, I hit 1,908 miles over the last 4 months, meaning I have now completed the triple crossing. And the double crossing finished recently. Got a couple little goodies sent on our way. One is this this little pin here. It is the 1,000 miles great virtual race across Tennessee thing, and this arrangement right here, which is the double crossing. I guess it's some sort of a bandana or something cool. Anyway, hang up. So I don't know if there's going to be any type of thing for the third crossing, but the reason I bring it up is it means that over the last 4 months, I've been averaging just under 30K a day, just in between 16 and 17 miles a day, and no off days, no 0 days. And I've thrown in 210,000 feet of elevation gain during that time. So a lot of my runs have been up in mountains, been quite difficult. So as you can imagine, there are times during this insane, ridiculous odyssey of a race where I am not feeling 100%. I may have like sore legs from the day before. I'm just tired. I left it too long at the end of the day. I just have days where I don't feel it. And yet I still get out. Like even today, I knew that today I needed to do 18 miles to finish and complete the triple officially. And I woke up, I had a workout in the gym, and my daughter actually told me, Indigo, she said, I'm a little worried for you. You haven't started yet. I know you got to do 18, 19 miles. I'm getting stressed. She was getting stressed about it. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go out and run. So I did an 8.5 mile loop down here, which got part of it out of the way. And during the run, I sometimes feel like, I'm just gonna slow it down. I'm not, there's no award for getting through anything fast. So it was a run that I thought, if I feel like walking or if I feel like slowing down, I will. Although at the same time, I'm thinking, if I can just get it done, then I know that the subsequent 10.5 mile run that I'm going to do later in the evening, I'll have a bigger break in between those two. So another strategy I've got sometimes is to find a topic, like something that I'm listening to that I'm interested in. Joe Rogan podcast, a book that I've been listening to, some new music, something like that. And I can kind of disappear with that and then not worry so much about the output. Because right now, if I'm running that much, I'm not breathing hard, even though I'm running at a reasonable pace. I'm just feeling like, man, I have run a lot lately. And the same thing happened tonight when I was doing my 10.5. I just thought, okay. And you start to play little tricks. So one of the things that I do for myself is I know I can walk forever pretty much if I needed to. But at the same time, a running pace that's an easy pace for me isn't that much more effort than walking. And yet it's almost twice as fast. It's at least 60, 70% faster, even at that pace. So I just think, okay, you know what? This is the same for me as walking would be if I just keep running. And the more I keep running, the closer I am to that finish. I can walk, let's call it 3.5 miles an hour at a good pace, but I can run much faster than that. I can knock off a lot more mileage quickly. So when I get to those places, one of the things that I remind myself of is, guess what, bud? This is what I signed up for. This is what I'm going to end up doing and embracing, because by God, I chose in. I opted in. That was my choice to enter that race, to get into this difficult situation, to go and do all this ridiculous up and down through the mountains, which slowed my distance down considerably, but made it more fun and tolerable for me to get through. So always recognizing that it's my choice. I'm not thinking, oh my God, I got to do this or I'm just going to say to heck with it because I've put my mind to it. Guess what? I am going to do it. One of my friends who I always have an outstanding offer to, if you want to go and put miles in, I will put miles in. So he sent me a note and said, hey, would you like to go running this weekend? Are you going to go out? And I just said straight back to him, I said, 100% certainty I'm going to run on both days. Just let me know what you want to do, if you want to come out in either one. And he kind of laughed and he said, I actually believe you more than I would believe the weather report saying it's going to be beautiful out or whatever. I know you're going to go out and run both days. So I want to get into some of the actual ultras as well. One of the first long races that I did in very difficult terrain was the Canadian Death Race. And I'll put a link in the finishing screen here to the Death Race video. At that point in YouTube, I wasn't able to post more than I think a 10-minute video or 15-minute video. So there's one or two of them there. And Daniel's here finally catching. Oh, hey, Daniel. Yeah. Hi from Europe. So during that race, I had a couple weird things going on. One is the Death Race is a North Face sponsored race with very little qualification attached to it. I had a longer race that got canceled, the Fat Dog, that year, and I was entered into the Death Race, and I had a very narrow window to fit it into. I needed to get out there very efficiently, sleep for a couple hours on the floor, run the race, drive directly to the airport, and go and do a job. So I had this limited amount of time to get the race done. And I also, at that point, knew that there were several thousand people in this race, huge for an ultra. They have teams that run it rather than solos. The solo division is a legit division. I think there's hundreds and hundreds of people in that as well. But it ended up having quite a few people at the start, and I don't want to get stuck in a group where I'm waiting to get through choke points or bottlenecks. And the course had a lot of big puddles on ATV routes, which were not ideal at all. You could either run through the middle and just get soaked and muddy, but nobody really wanted to do that. So people would wind up around the edges of these puddles, and I'd end up running a little faster at the beginning than I probably should have. And I had some fueling issues. I got to the point, maybe a third or halfway through, and I hit an aid station. And I figured I need calories because I'm really probably working harder than perhaps I should that early in a marathon, in an ultra marathon. And I hit a couple gels, and then I had this long ascent. And during that ascent, I could tell my stomach was starting to rebel. Like, this is not a happy place for my stomach. My caloric intake at that point shouldn't have been so aggressive, and maybe not with the particular gels that I used. So I ended up just vomiting on the course several times, 2 or 3 times on the way up, just to have the intestinal reset, they call it. So that was definitely a low point. But as soon as I vomited that out, I knew that it was, I had a new baseline to work from. I needed to get a little bit more calories in me, and it took me a little while to recover. So I walked a good section of the next segment, which brought us to an aid station where I didn't think things through that well. I didn't fill up my water like I probably should have. I didn't have some of the things that I really wanted there that I know would go down well, mandarin orange slices and things like that. And I ended up going up Mount Hamel or something like that. It's in the middle. It's a long ascent. And partway up that ascent, where I'm still feeling kind of low, I ran out of water, and it was a hot day. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? No water. And I've just been going up and up and up and up relentlessly for a while. I came across this little spring, and it seemed to be coming up right from the edge of the trail. And I just decided, all right, I'm going to partake of this spring and at least hydrate. So I got back into the game with hydration, and I thought, okay, if I'm out right now, if I'm going to leave this race because I'm just like, all my plan is gone, physically I'm a bit of a wreck, I'm not going to go back down the hill. I'm at least going to go to the top of the hill. And with races like this death race, literally there are peaks and there are valleys. That's both mentally, physically, and in the terrain. And I was going up this peak, which almost corresponds to going down mentally into a valley where you're thinking, oh my God, can I sustain this for very much longer? But I got to the top, and I knew at the top I had a drop bag with a new pair of shoes, and the new pair of shoes was good for downhill. And so I knew if I got to the top, then I could potentially get out of the race, but I'm a stubborn bastard, so I didn't really want to get out of the back, out of the race. Once I'd gotten up, refueled, filled the bladder, so I had stuff in it again. And I thought, okay, you know what? I am going to be reborn on the downhill. I love the downhill. I'm going to run. And that ended up being the critical point in the race for me, where I thought, okay, you know what? I recognize that there's the peaks and valleys. Just like you've got high points in your career, sometimes you've got low points. There are going to be peaks and valleys inevitably. And if you know that going in, then you have the confidence to endure when you're in that valley, mentally, like I was, physically, like I was, and so on. And I ended up finishing quite well, actually, and finishing in a reasonable spot, even though I had that slow section in there, and being able to then go to the airport and get everything done. So that was a bit of a win, but that was for sure a way that I needed to endure and survive that low point. I'm also interested in actually hearing from some of you what you have encountered as a serious low point and how you persevered, how you got through it. And again, this doesn't necessarily have to relate to ultramarathons. It could be just in life in general, in your career, in your business, mentally, with relationships, that sort of thing. How do you get to a point that was a real low point and then move on to the place where you're in a better spot? So for example, professionally, I had a partnership with a company for some time. I do development work. I do team building. I do training. I speak to groups publicly, and I work with companies to develop leadership, essentially. And the company that I was working with handled sales and marketing. That was it. I did all the program development, all of the delivery, the refinement of programs, the follow-up. I handled bringing in new facilitators when necessary, working with the sales team to make sure that they had things to say. And it began working remarkably well. We got really good feedback. Well, we had an agreement, which we were operating under from day one, that worked out pretty well and was, incentivized me to go ahead and move forward. And I was the sole person in the entire endeavor that was not a salaried employee. I was the entrepreneur. That company and I were essentially partners, 50-50. And it got to the point where they began to implement new accounting, essentially saying, hey, we want more of this. And I said, hey, that wasn't the deal. That's not. And they said, well, you've made this deal with me. You can't just change it. And their response was, well, it's either that or basically F off, that's it. But it worked years to get to this point, and it was working quite well. And that partnership fell apart in the last year. Essentially, they got to the point where I checked out a little bit, because if you have no integrity, you have no loyalty, and you don't recognize the value of contribution, or you disproportionately value the contribution you make over the contribution other people make, I've got a problem with that. So the beautiful thing is, this partnership went away, and I'm glad I don't need to work with those people anymore, because I feel like they don't have integrity, and they're not good with people. Where I'm sort of a promoter, I am a relationship person. They are kind of the opposite, a little bit more introverted, different relationships, more numbers driven, system driven, but not good with people. They had people that they were hiring and who left very quickly again and again and again. It's just a common theme. They didn't handle people well. So how did I deal with that? I could mope around and, worry. This is a pretty good lifestyle and a pretty good income that I'd created. Or I can move forward and build my own new version of the same thing, which is what we did, and put together a company, FullTIlt Team Development, which I'll put a link in the bottom in case anybody's ever curious about looking at what we do or wants to bring in a team building corporate trainer, motivational expert into your company. I'm happy to do that type of thing. But we just replaced that, and now I'm working with people that I like working with, that have each other's back rather than are adversarial. So again, surviving a low point. And I think the key element for me in that is that I'm choosing not to be a victim in this situation, because being a victim is disempowering, and that is not what I'm about. If I can take responsibility for the place that I'm in, despite the fact that this relationship got to be a little bit sticky, then that serves me really well. If I think, oh, I'm a victim and this is a problem, how am I going to, this stuff happened to me, these people treated me badly, that's not a powerful place to come from. It's not positive. It's not going to do good things. Excellent. I've got mostly functional Jess on. Yep, you did catch a live stream. And Grind Palm, Sweden's in the house as well. It's late night here in Vancouver, BC. So I guess I'm getting the Europeans in the morning. Good to see you guys. So there's a poem. My favorite poem ever is by Rudyard Kipling. It's If. And there's a part of the poem which essentially says, if you can meet with triumph and disaster and treat those two impostors just the same, if you can bear to hear the truths you've spoken, twisted by knaves to make a trap for fools, or watch the things you gave your life to broken and stoop and build them up again with worn out tools, those are the ifs that echo this. How do you endure getting through a hard thing, whether it's, again, physical, mental, or whatever, the peaks and valleys that I mentioned. If you can do that, I'll skip to the very end of the thing, which basically says that, and I love the last couple lines. If all men count with you, but none too much. If you can fill the unforgiving minute with 60 seconds worth of distance run, a little bit of running there, yours is the earth and everything that's in it. And which is more, you'll be a man, my son. So this, I got goosebumps just even saying the words, because it's so powerful. But it essentially says that, you, no matter what, keep relentlessly moving forward. So Delirious, I'll talk about this briefly as well, because I definitely had a couple low points in Delirious. And Delirious is a 215-mile race over the Bibbulmun track in southwest Australia. And it's a fantastic race. It's an amazing location. I'd strongly recommend anybody who's considering a 200 and wants to go to Australia to check that one out. The terrain is beautiful. We had a couple challenges. One of the first challenges was 100 meters from the start, the entire field took a wrong turn and was running bonus mileage for a while till we all got it sorted out. We weren't even looking at maps or GPSs yet. We just went the wrong way on the track, and the marking was a little slim at the beginning. But we sort of laughed that one through, and it in some way was just a great, memorable way to start. But it also reversed the field so that the people who were towards the front generally ran a lot farther out of the course than the people who turned around a little quicker, who were maybe at the back of the packers. And what it did was it reversed the whole field. So I got to see a lot of people in the race that you wouldn't ordinarily get to see. So I treated that as kind of a bonus, even though I knew extra miles. You're running 215 miles and you're already miles off course and you haven't gone more than 250 meters. It was ridiculous. But it was also a struggle for me the first day, because I had been training in snow in Canada, in cold. I was expecting a temperature of 70s, low 80s Fahrenheit, like 25 degrees, maybe warm at the warmest, centigrade. But what I got when I got there, because I was looking at the weather before I went, was expecting 25. We got 35 degrees centigrade. So in the 90s, and humid as hell. I just felt muggy and sweaty. And I knew halfway through the first day that I'm like, I am going to struggle mightily if I try and keep pace where I should be comfortable at. And the way I dealt with it is also, look, I just flew halfway around the dang world to get to Australia and experience this race. And by God, I want to go the full 215 miles and see what this place is like, because I've seen some pictures. It looks beautiful. And I don't want to have unfinished business, like not finish it. So I'm like, all right, for me to survive this, I am going to have to sacrifice my result, meaning, if I could finish closer towards the front, that would be great. But I would rather finish in middle of the pack than go out in flames towards the front. And I knew that's what was going to happen, because I wasn't taking in, again, calories and liquid like I should. So, and I had a few struggles during that race. And there's a concept that if you've run an ultra, you'll be familiar with, which is, I will call it the second wind. You run for a while, you feel pretty good. At some point, if you're running for long enough, you're not going to feel good. You are going to have a blister. Your leg is going to be tired. You're going to pull something. You're going to have sunburn. You ran out of water. You don't have enough calories. You tripped and fell. You're bleeding. You're going up this huge hill. It goes forever and ever and ever and ever and ever. It is cold. The hose on your bladder froze. You're in the snow. You brought the wrong gear, something. All that stuff you can count on is going to happen. You're never going to have just a perfect race. If you do, well, congratulations to you. Stuff is going to go wrong. And when that happens, you will get past it inevitably, as long as you just keep moving forward or do what you have to do to get things sorted. And there's often a second wind that you get. Like, okay, after that first experience where the heat kind of overwhelmed me and just made me slow down a lot and walk for quite a big stretch where I shouldn't really have been walking. And then I start up running again. Even at night, it was hot, but I found a second wind. Like, okay, I'm feeling better. I'll get back into it. And then at a certain point, you get tired. Like, I am exhausted. Second night, third night, whatever it was. I am so tired. I'm a zombie walking on my feet, hallucinating things. And I know right now that'd be really good if I had 15 minutes of sleep, and then I'd come up and I'd feel better. So that would be a third wind after that. And then you have a fourth wind that you have to deal with when you run out of something else, or you have a fifth wind. So over a 200-mile race, like the delirious 200-miler, you're going to have what I will call so many first winds, second winds, third winds, fourth winds, again, following this peak and valley thing that, again, mentally, physically, emotionally, even as you go through this, you know that there's going to be another peak that you're going to get to. So I call them the winds. And the number of winds that it takes for you to get to the end of a project that you're working on at work, an ultra marathon that you're running, to get to in a relationship to a place where you're happy, you're committed, you're whatever, is N. N equals the number it takes to get the thing done. So in the delirious, I probably had like the 9th or 10th wind. And that's what it took for me to run to the finish line the last couple miles and feel good. Like, yeah, thank God I got to the end of this. And that, that is what you traveled, worked hard, paid your money for, to experience. There is this ability for humans to celebrate vulnerable and challenging, difficult milestones and points in their life. And if you look at those points, that's where growth and value lie. When you encounter a difficulty and you overcome it. When you encounter a difficulty, and maybe you don't overcome it the first time, and you go back and you figure out, how do I get past this? How do I get past this? Rock climbers who try a new route have to climb it a whole bunch of times. They fail a lot until they don't. But that pain, or that dealing with physical pain of your forearms getting all jacked up and your fingers ripped and whatever, just the point where you're so frustrated you can't deal with it, you got to back off and go back again. But as long as you keep moving forward, you recognize it took me that much effort, pain, and struggle to reach that point to where transformation can occur. So on a 200, maybe you're 170 miles in and you haven't slept for 2.5 days, and you're dirty and you're tired, and you're in caloric deficit and it's cold out and whatever, someone passed you. So you get all these things going on in your head, and you may feel extremely low or extremely fragile, extremely vulnerable, but it took you 2.5 days of hard work to get to that point. That is what you paid your $1,000 entry fee to experience. That is what you paid to show up at the starting line. That is what you paid to buy the fancy poles and the pack and the shoes and the nutrition and all that crap that you bought to get to that point. So for you to then pull out at that point is almost more devastating than what you would be experiencing if you just kept moving forward. Now, I understand if you don't have the speed to hit a cutoff time or something like that, then it's kind of a different deal. But as long as you're ahead of that and you can keep inevitably moving forward. There's this guy, I believe Tom Mitchell's his name. He's one of Candace's races, the Bigfoot 200. He tried 3 times. DNF. He got tattoos, 2015 DNF, 2016 DNF, 2017 DNF. And the fourth time he persevered, he got through. That was a lot of nth wins to get through. But the transformation at the end of getting to that point was impressive. But that's where you create the value, the gold. Once you get to that point, you've stripped away everything. Like Candace said once, it's like peeling away the layers of the onion until you are at such a raw, primal state. It's a state which most people will never experience. And it's challenging and possibly scary. Once you get there, it could be in any race, you just move through it and recognize that that work is what it takes for you to get to that next stage. So same thing can happen in your personal relationships in life. If you've got a relationship that's a struggle or somebody who's challenging in your life, I've had a few people like that, where you get to the point where, like, you know what, this is not worth it for me to deal with. I'm going to cut this off. Like this is not working for me. So I'm going to, friends that I've had and that sort of thing, or even in a relationship, like getting through, again, these state changes. Like some people get scared about getting married, but it's such a relief to get married. I've been married now for 21 years, something like that. I'm with my wife for 23 years. But you make that decision. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to get to that point, and I'm going to stick through it because that's who I am. I have integrity. I am a person of my word. I will commit to the grind to get through that point. And once you commit to something, the resistance goes away. So that's how I deal with some of these races, low points, and challenges. So again, just looking through Dom's, what he said, how do I push through? The other thing is I believe that you can determine your own attitude. You can have the best time in the world digging ditches if you have the right attitude. Or you can go to Disneyland and have a miserable time because, by God, you're committed to having a miserable time. You know people like that who have the blessing of some sort of fantastic experience or trip and will complain about it. It's like, come on, man. If I go on a trip, I've got one person in a little running group that I'm with who's often like that and kind of moans and groans and talks about the danger and all this. I just roll my eyes and I'm just like, oh my God, I can't. I don't like being around that energy. So, okay, I'm going to wrap it up here. This is going along longer than I thought it would. So I like everybody's forbearance and patience. Danielle, I imagine myself standing at the start of the UTMB because I started running to get there someday. In order to get there someday, I need to keep going. That's another fantastic idea. It's like having that picture in your mind, like it's done. Like if you have that picture of yourself at UTMB at the start, tough race to get into, big, super fantastic achievement just to get in the race, and then to finish it, that's even better. But you have to have that vision. It's just not going to happen otherwise. To have that solid intention to get something done, to finish something, that also gets you through. Unwavering intention will get you through to some very big goals. And vision, putting in your mind, in your head, that thought, that picture, I'm going to be there, and then unwavering intention to get there, you will actually get there. So hopefully you guys have found some value in this. I will be looking at Clemens found my channel yesterday. That's awesome. Yeah. Send me a note on some of the things that you watched. Let me know what you like. Thanks, Clemens. So the way that you can support, if you choose, in kind of order from easiest to the most committed. The easiest is thumbs up on this video. If you can do that, fantastic. Second easiest is subscribe. Like Clemens, if you're new and you're ready to subscribe. I've got video content. I think I'm backed up about 35 different videos right now because I've been running so much and doing so many different experiences that I will eventually put out. So thumbs up, subscribe. You can take a look at my Strava. There'll be a link down below that you can find my Strava and you'll just see what I'm doing. LinkedIn, if you're interested in some sort of professional development or you just want to reach out professionally to me. Instagram, also at Kerry Ward, you can find that. But the creme de la creme of the support, again, if you choose, is a Patreon supporter, which basically is every month you commit to donating some amount that you feel comfortable with to content supporter or content creator rather, like me. And it can be, you know, a couple bucks, $5, $20. I think the biggest Patreon subscriber I ever had was $100. That was, you know, surprising and phenomenal, but maybe that's easy for some of you. I just appreciate your attention, and I wish y'all a good night. Do hard stuff, persevere, embrace it, and keep moving forward. Carrie out.